Chris Niedermeier is the former U.S. Senate Chief of Staff, former Deputy Director at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission.
The Brain Trust is here. Christine Niedermeier is a former U.S. Senate Chief of Staff. She now runs Straight Scoop Politics. It's a blog about Mrs. Clinton. There in the Commonwealth. You worked with her during her presidential campaign. Can we draw any long-range inferences from her appearance this afternoon?
Well, if she were here, she would tell you she still hasn't made a decision.
If she were here, I would say the same thing that I'm saying to you. I don't believe you.
Well, for all intents and purposes, the infrastructure is in place. I was involved last time, and there were two mistakes I think the organization felt they made last time. One was not having as many experienced presidential operatives. You know, that's an excellent point, Al. And when Paul Ryan was selected as Romney's running mate, everybody said that his positions on Medicare, turning that into a voucher, and maybe privatizing Social Security would turn off the senior citizens. But a lot of the polls don't show that as happening. And one of their jobs was to look in how the FBI and the CIA had interacted with the Warren Commission. And they concluded that they obstructed the commission, that J. Edgar Hoover had asked the FBI to conclude their investigation quickly, and they did not share with the Warren Commission everything. When I stepped in as a very young legislative aide to Congressman Dodd back then, it was the expectation of members of the committee that we were entering with an open mind. Because the climate has changed. The segment you just did, Craig, was right on in terms of how the districts have changed. What's really changed and what has caused, in my view, this conflict on the Hill are four things. Number one, there's no relationships on the Hill anymore between the White House and the Hill and the House and the Senate. Back in those days, they didn't have big travel budgets. They didn't go back to their districts as often. They built relationships. Number two, campaign money wasn't what it is.
Yeah, I'm
as
with
a state legislator, I was involved in getting bills through and getting budgets through. You have no cover now because the minute you vote, it's on. Matt's right. It has not gone well, particularly the national computer network. Some of the states like Connecticut and others that have their own health network have been working well. But what I would say is this. Back in 2005, when we rolled out the Part D changes in Medicare, that also stumbled for quite a while. Any new program like this, and this program has 13,000 new health care products, is going to take a while to get the bugs out. On the other hand, you can't wait too long because people are going to back off from going on the computer network and trying to sign up if they feel they can't get on. If the committee doesn't reach a conclusion, then the options are the credit rating of the country could go down, the markets could take a dive. Already there's an international economic crisis. People are out of work to the tune of 9%. If those circumstances don't change between now and next November, I think both members of Congress and the president will be in the tank. Those of you who may read my blog, Straight Scoop Politics, or seen me on some of the TV interviews, know that while I have run for office as a Democrat, I'm an independent political analyst. And this is how I see it. I see any president who builds a legacy, there's really two significant elements. One is the turf that they're operating in, and the second is their leadership skills to get the job done in that climate.
I think one great thing is that if you are sitting any place in America, you have equal access to what Chris writes.
There was a feeling at the time that had the Kennedy family really wanted to get to the bottom of this, perhaps more information would have been shared with us, but it was understandable with the president murdered and now Robert Kennedy murdered that perhaps Ted Kennedy and the rest of the family needed to get on with their lives. And increasingly alienating the moderate Republicans in the Senate and in the House. He has gotten a lot of publicity over this, but in the meantime, his point about the government wanting to be shut down by the Democrats is totally false. It wouldn't have happened unless Speaker Boehner, instead of acting like a minority leader, acted like a speaker and brought this bill to the floor of the House without an amendment, a clean CR, so that we could get the budget passed. I worked in the Clinton administration, and the difference you had is when Bill Clinton was president, he would roll up his sleeves, he'd get into the minutia of legislation, he'd negotiate on the Hill. Obama's approach has been much more cerebral, it's been much more hands-off, it's been much more aloof. Weeks left, as you know, for the super committee to reach a conclusion if they're going to meet the deadline. It seems that President Obama set a new tone when he went out on the campaign trail recently because the vehicle was moving and he was so high up. And so Congressman Dodd said, I believe there were 2 people in the building and there was a film to show that there was another body potentially in the window, but who knows? You know, it's 35 years later, now 50 years later from the event itself.
Chris Niedermeier, fascinating story. Thank you. Michael, always great to see you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Michael.
Let's go to our brain trust this day. We've got Kristen Niedermeier, was a staffer on Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign and now runs the Straight Scoop Politics blog.
To use that as a springboard for president when he has some difficulties and when he's trying to moderate himself to win in New Jersey, and then will need to become more conservative to gain the support of the base of the Republican Party.
Well, for the latest analysis on our top stories, let's get right to our brain trust. Christine Niedermeier, author of Straight Scoop Politics, the blog. Thank you all for being here today.
Absolutely.
Great to be here. Most polls also show that the American public supports, at least doesn't oppose tremendously, the NSA program to track our emails and track our phone calls. They want to make sure it has a legitimate connection with security. The concern I would have also as a lawyer is the government collects information all the time, but the courts are there to determine whether...
Why did he win?
A number of different factors. I think you have to almost go back to the summer when Ryan was selected as the running mate for Romney. He did that because he needed to solidify his base among the Republican Party, particularly the right wing. But by doing that, it energized all of the traditional Democratic constituency groups from the convention on. But they'll need more than just an increase in holiday mail to weather their increasing financial losses.
Excitement continues to build. The question will be, when the evening's over, whether Mondale will pull out a victory.
And here are some of the top stories we're following for you on News 4 this week.
I'm kidding. Save it for us.